Good afternoon. It's slightly after 1 o'clock. Hopefully you had a little break for some food or just departed a previous session that you were enjoying. I know those of you in here got to hear Tom DeCord speak. He's got a lot of good information about iPads. This session we're going to be talking about strategies for creating content for iPads. A little bit of information very quickly about myself. I'm in my 26th year working in education. My current job is head of school. Although I have kind of a unique situation in that I'm the head of school, but I teach one class out of choice because I enjoy teaching. That's really what I see as my livelihood. So although when I come to things like this, I do miss the classroom. I'm there most of the time, and the passion for technology is certainly there in terms of me leading initiatives for that. We were an early adopter for the iPad at the Franklin Academy in Wake Forest, North Carolina, and we have about 600 of these out in a one-to-one configuration at our high school. We have class sets, we have carts and so forth in our K-8 program. And over these past 5 years, part of what we have had to do is develop out some professional development, and one piece of that is creating content. How do we get content together for the iPad for teachers and instructors to use across all grade levels? What I'm outside of my sort of day job of head of school, I do trainings, I do things like this, come to conferences and try and share about what we're doing as a school. The one thing that's a little different than most of my presentations around, I don't have any students with me. Usually I have a little team of students and they're showing things and displaying things just because I could stand up here and give you pie in the sky and you know, wonderful stories and great things, but seeing it in action, seeing those students actually do the things they can do with the iPads, with the content the teachers are creating, I think that speaks volumes, and it's something I'm pretty passionate about, and I try and bring them into whatever I'm doing in terms of sharing out what we're doing as a high school. Couple of pieces of background for our presentation. One of the things that I feel like often is that I'm an air traffic controller in the classroom, and I'm trying to control all of these airplanes. There I am in the middle, and you know, trying to get this student this work, that student this work, and it's a juggling act. It's always been that way in teaching. And sometimes it ends up in the worst case scenario, you know, do whatever. I mean, they've got to get it done. We're hoping we can maybe move away from that a little bit, give you a little bit more organization, and perhaps you as the control tower might look something a little bit more like this, an organized approach with everything where you need it. And you can manage the devices in the classroom, provide that content to your students, and then help them with that learning process. That's the scenario. Many of you may be in situations where you've adopted iPads and you're trying to figure out, okay, now what? What do we do with these? How can we get the content we want on there for the students? And that's part of this organized approach, one piece of that puzzle. And let's see. Series of pictures here when we're looking at learning situations. And I teach seniors, and it's January. If you teach seniors in January or February, you should get a lot of sympathy. It's a struggle. The only ones who get more sympathy, I think, are those teaching elementary school the day after Halloween. That's bad. That's just, they just come in and cry. I mean, the kids just cry after that day. So that's something that we have to deal with. And how can we get to something that's a more engaged environment when we look at these students? Let's take a look at these three pictures, and I'm going to see if I can get them to stay up there. There they are. The first picture, upper left, showing the kind of traditional classroom. They have books out, papers, kids are working, some may not, some zoning out, so forth. Down one level, we have the kind of computer lab approach, and you get maybe a little bit more engagement, maybe not, depending on the structure and how you have that. The last picture is a completely different environment where students are learning, and they're learning in groups, they're mobile, they're moving around, they can manipulate things. You don't have to have class in that seat or this station. You can have class where you want to have it. So it's a rethinking of space as well. This learning, again, should be matched to content that you're creating. You don't need for them to be in that particular spot or the location necessarily in order to complete those activities. So this is something that we want to look at in general. The iPad in itself brings with it mobility, which is quite important. Students can move, teachers can move. I'm all connected through wires and things here connected up to this presentation, and the tech people have told me don't move. Well, that's a bad thing to tell a teacher, don't move. But you know, with the iPad, when I'm in my classroom, I'm rarely in the same place. I'm moving around because I'm connected in through an Apple TV to a big TV screen, and we're off and running in class. So your content needs to reflect that mobility, that ability to move from place to place. It's centralized. Students come to school, they have a device, and in this case it could be really any tablet device that you're putting this content on. It's all there. What has gone away? I left it at home, in terms of I left this paper or homework at home or this textbook at home. I can't find it. That can happen with the iPad, but it's usually on there somewhere. Maybe they're just not finding the link or getting to the right page. All of those things change a bit because this is a centralized approach. It also offers an opportunity to collaborate. When designing activities, think about how you can get the learners together, working together with one another, small groups, pairs, even multiple classes. You could do multiple schools. There's lots of collaborative opportunities here, and there are a wealth of tools that can help individuals facilitate that with lesson planning. And the last one is this interactivity. One of the things that I have done this past year is did a little survey. It's not very scientific because I'm not a statistician, but I did administer a survey to all of our students, and then I asked 10 questions. One of those was about motivation, and over 70% of our students felt they were more motivated to get things done. The other one that I thought was important, the quality of assignments that you can produce. Do you feel you can do a better job getting things done your teachers ask you to do? And that was over 80%. And so I think we do see that migration. We do see that change in behavior that you want. And that study, if you're interested, you can contact me. I don't mind sending that out. There's been a couple articles that have been out there that detail some of it. But it's interesting to look at that and those behavior changes and how they interact with content. Now in this session, we're looking at strategies. So I'm going to give some starting points, some quick tools that you could use to help get underway with putting together content for iPads. And how do we make this interactive learning experience? How do we build that out? And then the best content. How can you start to do everything from locate the best to create your own from scratch, if you like. And that's going to be our task. So let's visit a classroom. And my classroom is the one on the left from years back. I was the king of organized notebooks by unit. So when I started teaching in 1989, I had all of my notebooks and they were all labeled this unit. All the papers were in there. So I had my stack. And what we need is a little different with the iPad. And so in the upper right, if you take a look at the diagram there, there's a Venn diagram which shows how do these different components in a Venn diagram associate with one another, with that iPad as the delivery tool in the center. And this diagram, I think, is useful, and we continually visit this again and again to remind ourselves of what components we need to take into consideration when we're looking at designing out content for the iPad. We need to know that there's a personalized component here. How can we make personal learning a reality using our content in the iPad? And then we ideally would love to have this nice little box of everything that we want to teach packaged, and it's all put somewhere where we can get to it 24/7 and our students can get to it 24/7. So that's perhaps maybe the goal down the road. There's also this idea of recognition of flexible learning. Students can learn anywhere. An example, the iPad takes pictures and can take screenshots. Those things can be quite useful when you're having students work in different locations with what they're doing. Think about that as integrating a component in your lesson. If they're working independently and they get through with the activity, maybe it's even an outside app that they need to achieve a certain score, take a screenshot, post it, send it to me. That becomes then the tool that they can use anywhere and anytime. There's differentiation that can occur within assignments that you create by grouping students. Learning management systems will do this sometimes for you. A lot of the educational software that you can tap into will allow you to group students. And then the anytime, anywhere. Another thing about the study that I noted in some of the comments, class, for example, on tomorrow will be from 10 o'clock until about 10:50. My students are not really bound by those minutes any longer. If I look when people turn things in or are doing things, there's minutes and hours of all parts of the day. Some of them a little concerning that it's 1 a.m. and you're turning something in to me, but you have removed that bound of the time of class. That has happened. I see more kids using lunch, or we have a flex period, or before school or after school. It's right there in their hands. They have the tools, get it done. And they jump right in and use that time perhaps a bit more efficiently than traditionally I've seen in education. So maybe these are some shots of what we would like to see with our content, and this could be in something like the arts, where you can provide them content that they're using in conjunction with musical instruments. An interesting story, we had a chorus concert, this was last year, and all the students had their music on their iPad. The lights went down and there was this glow from the iPad. So they all had this light from below on their faces. It was kind of an interesting shot. I wish I had a good picture of it. It was kind of dark in there, so I wasn't able to do so. The idea of anywhere, anytime. I was traveling with some students to New York City to do a presentation, and I looked over and I said, "Ann, what are you doing?" And she said, "Oh, I'm working on my homework." And so she's sitting on the plane getting something done, and there's nothing really preventing her from being able to do that. She has this. It's not during her class time, it's during another time. And you will find some perhaps unintended or unnoticed benefits right away. My copiers are much more happy because fewer copies are actually made. I've challenged myself about 3 years ago when I started teaching the current class I have in AP Human Geography. I said, I'm not going to give my students one piece of paper. No paper. And I've been able to do that. And that copier last year is one of the copiers we have. I know I saved a little over 200,000 copies. And I attribute that largely to teachers shifting their content from hard copy into electronic copy where it needs to be done. Now, do I tell all my staff you can't use a piece of paper any longer? No, that's not really practical. I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think you can look at saving resources. Do you really need a hard copy of that? Or is that something they could have electronically and work from the iPad and achieve the same learning goals you have? So out in space, let's go back. Hold on. We're out in space in the world of creating lessons here. And let me see if I can get my little planets moving there. You have your lesson, and whatever lesson you have, if you haven't created iPad content before and you've been teaching a little while, you already have probably 75% of what you need, because you can take most of what you have and convert that quite easily if you needed to. So we have our lesson kind of in the middle, and then we've got the idea of this needs to be efficient. The iPad should help with efficiency, not make it less efficient. My math teacher came to me and said, it's really hard for me to check their work. I've been had them take screenshots of or photos of their work, and then they turn it in, and then I have to go in there and open each photograph and see that they did. That takes me much longer than walking around the room and just checking off. So, well, why are you doing it? Stop doing it today and just go walk around the room and check them off if that's fastest. You don't want to implement something that's going to cost more time, because that's not necessary. We have a variety of activities you're going to put in, collaboration amongst you and your students, between students. You have text of a variety, could be textbook, could be other novels or things like that, and a variety of media that you'd want to integrate in. Anyone familiar with Nomia? Okay, Nomia has actually two kind of components now. It had an app for a long time, which is great for flipped learning. You can videotape lessons and then you can post them. Students can visit them. They've got a second component, which is web-based now, where you can make these activities. And you can build out activities for the students to use. It works great on the iPad. I've used it with my students a number of times. And if I can, without creating a complete and total disaster of the electronic situation here, let's see if I can go to, nope. This is my Nomia, so this is my page. But what I've done, and I'm going to scroll on down, I have these lessons that I've created. These lessons include video, text slides, could be slides from a PowerPoint or Keynote. I could dump straight in there if I wanted to. I can embed questions into what they're doing, and it comes out as one nice package. They can have accounts if you want to, or in my case, I don't want them to remember another login piece of information. They can just sign in with their name. Put your name in and I get a record of it. And I can monitor their learning. So this could be in class or outside of class. And if I go to one of these, I'll show you what the screen will look like for the students. And I'm going to bring this down just a little bit. This is the opening comments, and then inside here, you're going to see there is a video. So this is taken from YouTube. This one is a brief overview of the unit. And so they can watch this. Now you could do this as a whole class activity if you like, or they could be doing this independently. The nice thing is they can go back anytime they want. And then you can embed questions. And they would answer here, and they have a little window to answer, and then continue on. Now, the whole time that they're doing this, and I'm going to get out of my little screen here of what it looks like. I think maybe. Oh. And here we are. I can track their performance. So there's students over there. This tells me what they have watched, how much of the video they have watched. And the interesting thing, it goes over 100%. So if I know that they watched it like twice, it will say 200%, which is kind of good data to know about your students. Did they go back and look for something else, trying to answer some of the questions? So you can view any of the student answers, and this is pretty much real time. So you could have this up on your device and watch the students learning. But the content here is you can throw in a video. In this case, I've extracted something from, say, YouTube or Vimeo or TED Talk or any of those things. You can drop them in. You can then type in content if you like. You can put in a document if you like into the screen itself, and then you can add questions. Now, these questions can be multiple choice, true, false, extended answer, or something from a book, if you have a book that they're referring to. So you can say page 2, whatever. Answer the question. Yes?
Are those text questions or can you add audio questions?
Well, you could put in an audio question if you had it as a video with nothing. You know what I'm saying? You could embed that video with just audio playing. I don't think there's a direct, just plain audio file that you could put in that right now. This is relatively new, so I would expect it to continue to morph and change just a little bit as we move ahead. But that's one particular tool that you can use. And again, integrating all of these things. How many of you use cloud storage of some sort? Okay, if you don't have an account with Box or Dropbox or one of those, do it right away if you're going to use iPad. Because that gives you a source location for content that you can place and then bring into these sort of platforms like Nomia. And there's many of these. Nomia is just an example we have right here. Okay. Now let's look at iBooks and eText. So if we were to say, well, that's a web version of content and being able to show that, what about developing out eText and developing out iBooks? Nice thing here is anytime, anywhere is kind of the idea behind this use of content on the device, and it can be highly personalized. So if you're creating a book for your class, you could create versions of that book that include content specifically for a class or a subgroup within that class, if you like. And there's a whole range of possibilities here. And now I put a little gauge on the side. What I mean by easy, intermediate, and hard is perhaps the learning curve. Honestly, I think any of these any educator can get well into and do a fantastic job with. So I wouldn't tell you, run away from iBooks at all. It's just that it's a richer platform. You're going to have more options, more things you can do, so that learning curve will be a bit longer. Do we have any Book Creator users here? There may be a few of those. What about Creative Book Builder? And then we have iBook authoring, and we have authors in here for iBooks, a couple of those. All of these can be quite useful in the classroom. With iBooks, to show you real quickly, and I'll come over here. I think, here we go. iBooks Author really is not that difficult. I'm showing it, it's the hardest one I listed on my little meter there, but if you look at it, it's kind of like PowerPoint or Keynote or these things where you have slides. Well, those are pages, and these pages you can put in content. The content can be pictures, can be text, can be all sorts of pieces, and if it will let me slide over here, the nice thing about this is you have highly interactive pieces, or what they call widgets, you can put in. And this can be supplying direct feedback to you as a teacher while they're working on it. You can set that up to make that happen. In this case, I have them doing a chart about the agricultural revolutions, so that chart is in the book. They tap on it, open it in one of their annotators, and off they go and working. So I've combined these, centralized it into one tool, and using iBooks, we have text, I can put video, pictures, I can put these widgets, which allow them to do a whole range of things. If I have a keynote presentation, I can drop that straight in here. Window comes up, they can play the keynote if they want to. So your content you have right now can be put straight in here. That chart I've used prior to the world of getting it onto an iBook. So I really didn't have to recreate that. I didn't start from zero. I had that pretty much. I made a couple changes on the size of it so I knew they had enough room to annotate, and saved it as a PDF, plopped it in here. So I'm using a lot of content that's already in existence. If we switch over and take a look at how this differs from Creative Book Builder and Book Creator, let's see if I'll get a signal there. Yep. Creative Book Builder is maybe not quite as flashy a tool, but you have sections that you can build in, and you're basically placing in the text and the images on the right-hand side. You navigate what you're working and adding on the left. In this case, I do our course guide for all of our classes for the high school. I do this in Creative Book Builder. I turn it into a web app so that then they can navigate our course catalog online. And it's all done, I do the whole thing through Creative Book Builder. You can copy paste. I mean, if you have a text document and you want to put that in here, just copy, paste, put it in as a paragraph and add it to the book that you need. This one again may be really useful to some. It may not really serve all the purposes you want for others. It doesn't have the true interactivity like you may find in something like iBooks. But if you just want text and images and the basis, then this may be a good tool and something for you to choose. The next item that we'll take a quick look at would be with the idea of Book Creator. Now, I'm going to switch to one of the pages. With Book Creator, you can quickly add photos, and you can add text, camera, pen, music. Here you can embed an audio file. You can drop that in there, and you can start to flesh out these pages. All of it can be moved around. So if we had a picture, and in this case, let's use this one, I can zoom, move that around, change the size of it, and include that in my book, and then I can start adding in some text if I wanted to do that. So it's very intuitive, easy to use. Kids can use this quite a bit. And in fact, this is one of the apps I put on the student devices, because instead of them doing a poster on a big piece of poster board, we often use Book Creator. Now your project becomes a little ebook that you're going to share with your classmates and share with the teacher. Do the same thing. You can add these images. You can add text. In fact, you can do even more now. You can add in media that you really can't do in that hard poster format. And so this puts it all in one place, and they have those tools and they can bring it in. You can do this as a teacher. For younger kids, this may really give you everything you need to be able to make that content. Fast, easy, very intuitive, and like I said, you can get the students involved with this quite quickly to make a book. All right, let me go back to our presentation. Let's now take a look at learning management systems. Now, this is a revelation I had probably about a year and a half ago. When we first started iPads, it was me and my 30 iPads, then 60 iPads, then 200 iPads, and 500 iPads. And early on, you had an app to do this, and then you had an app to do this, and an app to do this, and you ended up with kind of a collection of apps to complete tasks. I have found, and I actually recommend to a lot of people, apps are kind of important for a certain level. But if you truly want to look at workflow and you want to take your content and put it together seamlessly, you may really want to consider a good, robust LMS, a learning management system. There's plenty of them out there. Many schools use something like Edmodo, which is a scaled version of an LMS. It doesn't have every tool, but it's a great way to turn in work or grab documents and do things like that with the iPad. We used that for 2 years. We outgrew that and needed something more. And in this case, to give you a quick view as to what that LMS is going to look like, let's go back to my web page. And we're going to go to my geography class. This is kind of tiny, hard to see there, but you have a navigation pane here. Now, you see I have now my units, my contents here. In these content sections, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see, these are text documents, they're PDF files, they're activities they submit for grades. So my grade book is in here. I store all the files that we're working with on here. I extract them from my cloud and throw them in there when we need them. I have links that will take them to certain things. Could be a website, could be a NOMIA activity we were just looking at. Go to this link and start working on this assignment. There can be discussion questions. All of this is happening within this one space. And perhaps you that and start to understand and see the value in this, in that I'm not having to have the kids go to this app for this one thing and then go over here for something else and here for something else and here for something else. Now things can be centralized. Do we not use any apps anymore? No. We still use other apps. But think about how you can centralize this. My students log into one place and they get to all of this content. There's not 5 different things they're having to go log into to make this happen. And as I said, this is also my grade book. So assignments that are graded, once they're done, I grade them and then they go in my grade book. And students can see their grade. And it becomes that centralized piece that I think is in great demand in education, especially with technology, because there's so many things out there. Well, how can we bring this together neatly? So that's the quick look, really, at what an LMS would look like and what that could do. Let's go. Yep. That's Canvas. Yeah. And I'm not a Canvas salesman or anything like that. I did do a rather extensive evaluation of the ones we were looking at and even considered making my own. So threw it all in the mix, and that's the one that came out for our purposes out on top. So looking at some key ideas. You need to follow the embed, engage, and explore. When you're creating content, where are you going to place this? How are you embedding it in the other things that are going on, processes and learning activities in the classroom? How are you going to engage your learners with that content? And then how can they explore their own learning connected to what you're providing them? What I love more than anything else about it with the iPad, we get into a discussion, somebody asks a question, it's not something I thought of before class, and I say, you know what? Find out. They go right away, a minute later they're sharing with the kids. And the students have to start getting in that train of thought as well. I mean, a freshman that's sitting across from me at my desk working on some homework in a foreign language, and I said, well, why didn't you answer these? He said, well, I don't know what those words mean. And I looked at him like, he was a crazy man, because I said, you've got a device sitting in your hand that can connect you to what you need to know if you need to know it. You need to start thinking about that. Don't give up on yourself because you can't recall it right away. Think about what else you can do. Once you get that thinking going, it's really amazing what they can do. And then we're looking at this e-text idea, or the web-based Nomia idea, or LMS. You can have all three of those happening at one time. They have a purpose and they have a role, I think, in what the students are learning. But think about what's involved with each one of those. And when we're looking at the strategies for content development, standardize content delivery methods. If you're in a school where everybody's doing their own thing, the wild, wild west, that's going to really be harmful for students with iPads traveling from class to class. Oh my gosh, we're doing this in here or that in there. Streamline as much as you can, standardize as much as you can, and then there will be subtle differences from class to class, like content-specific apps that they may just use in physics, or they may just use in sixth grade science. Collaborate, create in existing groups. This is what we do at my school. I put together groups of teachers to create content together for the school. And take baby steps. You can't tackle everything at once. We're creating our own textbook. We're not doing every class. I have 5 in creation right now. We'll get them done, and I'll probably have 5 more after that. As our skill increases, maybe I can bump that up. And we'll continually add that to what we're doing. What does this look like? Well, it can be in your school. In this case, there was a neighboring business that had a boardroom that was vacant most of the time. I said, I really want my teachers to get out of the school building, because if they're in the school building, the students think they're there to help them still. And they come see them and interrupt them. And when you're working on content creation, you really can't have that interruption every 10 minutes. You need quality, extended time to work on this to get a great product. So we'll take days like this where they're working along. What kind of resources can you draw upon? I would tell you, take a look at open education resources. OER Commons is a great site. It can give you starting points with content you can take and place into eBooks and things like that. There's also, they do sponsor a conference, I think it's once a year, which is kind of a great thing to go to and learn about different things related to open education resources. What does it include? What does it mean? What are the copyright issues? How do we navigate that? What can we use it for? OER Commons has a lot of that information, and there's some good things you can draw from there. Does it have everything? No, but it has some things that perhaps you could start with. CK12, they've been around for a good while now in terms of creating textbooks. Don't start out thinking, I'm going to create a book, and not take the time to see what's out there already. Because you may find that the majority of what you truly need is an open platform, and you can borrow from and place that and put that together in what you need. Our Earth Science textbook was completely formulated from open education resources that we matched up to our standards, our local needs, and our teachers put it together and created this resource. You want to, as much as possible, to look at this one-stop shopping and think about that when financially trying to plan out what's the best thing for the school. Third-party connectivity. Canvas, for example, there's lots of third-party integration, like Turnitin, or if you use Dropbox, or if you use Box, or if you use Pearson, or if you use... These all can be brought straight into that learning management system seamlessly, so the students can work straight from there. So check into that as you're investigating how this content can be provided. And think about the interactivity and assessment. What part of assessment is connected to what you're doing? The creating e-text and make your own learning materials library, this you can go and do. I will show you a quick image of what that possibility could look like. And let's go to the world of Franklin Academy. These are some books that we have been working on and finished. And this is a page that students can get to and teachers can get to, and they can just click on it and they can download the book onto their device. So it's like our little mini library of learning resources we've created from the content we've made. Everything from an entire textbook. This is these are all the labs that she does in biology for a year. So they're all in here. And so she can just open it up, take a look at it, and the kids can go there and view it. Now, let me go back to... So this idea of what you can do in one-stop shopping is certainly a possibility, and I'd encourage you to do that. Now, at the very end here, any quick questions that you have about the points I was emphasizing here with the content creation? Because I know we're edging on the time here in the next minute or two. General questions. What I would encourage you to do, try out some of these tools. See how you can organize your content that you have and make it in a format that the iPad can serve as that delivery device of choice. I thank you for attending today. If you have any questions, you can certainly contact me by any of those means. You can check out tlipad.com. We do sponsor an iPad conference in November each year. It's sponsored out by my school, and it's a great time to see students and teachers and what they can do with iPads in teaching and learning. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.